70s, 80s and 90s. Tonight we land firmly in the 70s with the most successful British band of that decade. Don't give you a clue? Our opening track must have done. Mama, We're All Crazy Now got to number 1 in 1972 for Slade. That was just one of 6 number 1s and 24 top 40 hits. The original lineup split when the lead singer, Noddy Holder, left the band, but Slade has continued on, never stopped gigging, and there's only one member who's been there since day one and is still leading the charge, particularly at this time of year, and that, of course, is Dave Hill. He of the fascinating fringe haircuts and flamboyant stage costumes, which you can see for yourself as they continue their UK tour right up until Christmas. Next week, December 10th, they'll be at the Picture Dome in Holmfirth. On the 12th, the O2 Academy in Liverpool. The 14th, the O2 Academy in Bournemouth. Then it's on to Oxford on the 16th at the O2 Academy. Shepherd's Bush Empire in London on the 17th. The O2 City Hall in Newcastle on the 19th. And finishing up, of course, on home turf in Birmingham at the O2 Institute on December the 20th. Merry Christmas, everybody, indeed, especially to Slade's Dave Hill.
Hi, Jackie. All right?
You okay?
Yeah, I'm a little croaky. There's a going sore throat around this area.
Right, yes.
A good job I'm not singing, actually, so...
I expect that Christmas is particularly a busy one for you guys doing dates because everybody wants to see Slade and hear your iconic Christmas music and stuff. Is that something that you look forward to, or is it a bit of an, oh, here we go again?
No, I don't. I think it's here we go again. I think it's an amazing thing that the band has had so many hit records, and yet I know a lot of people, whatever age they are, Christmas time is something special. It's always been special to me.
But listen, what we tend to do on the show, Dave, is to delve into your individual sort of musical memories and try and find out the influences that sort of steered you before you became the famous musician that we know and love. So when you were growing up, when you were a teenager and getting into music, who were you sort of hero worshipping at that point?
Having been born in 1946. So your post-war years of not much money and certainly not rock and roll anyway. And it really wasn't until the 50s that I heard anything that really tickled my ears. In England, there was skiffle groups and Lonnie Donegan and things. But before that, and what really tickled my ears was American music.
Yeah.
And obviously one of the, apart from the Dion's and this and that, there was Elvis, and Elvis had a dramatic effect on British music. I mean, he cited us. He never came to England, but that was going on, and I started to want to think about doing something in music. I thought about the piano, as my grandfather is classical pianist, but he was no longer alive when I was born.
Right.
But I think the musical thing was in me anyway.
Yeah.
But I think it was finding the instrument that it wasn't about going to school and reading notes. I mean, my first attempt to go to school and get in a music class was a little bit odd because the teacher said, you can't read music. Well, you can't really when you're 9 or 10.
No.
But it wasn't until I was going to senior school that we started to get affected by the sound of American records. And I think with Elvis, that was the start of it.
Well, since my baby left me...
Presley, Heartbreak Hotel got to number 2 in 1956 when tonight's special guest Dave Hill of Slade would have been around 10 years old and just starting to fall in love with music. So as you matured, Dave, into your teens, how did your musical tastes evolve?
The teenage thing, I mean, bear in mind, when I was young, there wasn't a teenager at first. Everybody looked like their mom and dad. Yeah. And most music on radio was crooners and Sinatra and people like that.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really any rock and roll. But the start of the journey was, I said to my dad, there's a lad down the road who's got an acoustic guitar. I'd really love to learn to play that. And he said, well, yeah, it's a good idea. I said, well, there's a lot of this skiffle music. And I saw Elvis with an acoustic jumping around.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'll buy you one, but I'm not paying loads of money. So there was a catalogue called Kay's Catalogue.
I remember.
And we were looking in it. And that was mail order of the day, you know.
Yeah.
And I must have been 13. So he ordered it and it came in a cardboard box. And I was so excited. And when I took it out, I had it upside down. And the reason I had it upside down was there were no Beatles or anything like that. So there were no left-handed guitars.
Right.
And Dad said, well, I don't think that's quite right, son, because the strings are on the wrong way. He said, well, I think you should go and see a teacher. So I went to see a jazz teacher who was at my school. He was a biology teacher.
Yeah.
And he says, you can't play it like that, Dave. He said, oh, get used to it. I said, well, I'm left-handed. He said, doesn't matter. Just play it right-handed. And he did me a favour. And that started my love affair with starting to learn. I think it was Tell Laura I Love Her was the record I learned. Music, you know, and followed the chords. You know, so all records. And then after that, this lad down the road, I said, shall we form a group? And then there was a kid at the youth centre, looks a bit like Cliff Richard. And I thought, he may be a good singer. He looks great, because he looks like Cliff, you know.
Yeah.
Because the Shadows had made it then. Actually, he couldn't sing, so we thought, well, he can play drums then. And then my mate, Tony, said, oh, I'll learn the bass. Oh, great. So me and him got an amp. We were in a steel house, they call them in the Midlands, which is a metally type house, which actually you can hear all the neighbours talk.
Yeah.
So anybody that's making noise, it's horrific, right? And we had this amplifier, no plug on it, right? And he wired it up to the light bulb on the ceiling. I mean, it was like really, yeah.
It was a disaster
there together, trying to play FBI. So we had some electric guitars by then. So I got rid of that acoustic. And Cliff and the Shadows were in the charts as well.
Cliff was sort of the Elvis of the UK, wasn't he? I mean...
What he was, yeah. He certainly wasn't Elvis, but he was certainly in that vein.
Yeah.
But the records around at the time, there were so many great records around at the time.
Slade's Dave Hill. And we'll be back with more great conversation from Dave next on Greatest Hits Radio.
Great.
Next to the great conversation with Jackie Brambles, your good self, and our old pal Dave Hill of Slade. Enjoying a top-notch natter. Slade, of course, currently out on their traditional UK Christmas tour. You can catch them in Home First next week on December 10th. Then it's on to Liverpool, Bournemouth, Oxford, London, Newcastle, and finishing up, of course, on home turf in Birmingham on December 20th. Before the break, Dave, we heard about your earliest musical influences, Elvis, Cliff and the Shadows. So how did you then start to get into bands yourself and eventually meet the other members of Slade, Don, Jim and Noddy?
Well, it's a good story, this. Really, I was in a band. I was working at Tarmac, and a guy spotted me playing in a pub band, you see, because that group on the estate had fell apart, you see.
Right.
And this bloke spotted me. He seemed to have got me a dress, and he turned up at my dad's house, and he said, I've just come to see you. He said, I saw you with that, I think it was Mac Woolley or somebody's band. He said, no, you didn't, it obviously, you're dead young, and that's not your music, is it? I said, well, no, not really.
Right.
He said, well, I've got a group in Bilston. I think they're called the Vendors, right? And in the Vendors, there was a guy, they're looking for a guitarist. He's leaving. So I went over there. There was these two jolly blokes, Mick and John.
Yeah.
And Don Powell was in that group. I was standing there, and I know they got to get another bass player. But I started to play Chuck Berry, you see. And they're all watching me, because I could play bar chords, which a lot of groups in those days didn't play. A bar chord is when one finger goes across the fence, and then Chuck Berry plays them, and it has a rhythmic sound to it.
Right.
And I was playing that, and it was a bit like, oh, he's good, And he said, would you like to join? I said, well, I've got a day job. I'm working in an office. And he said, well, I don't matter. We'll just we'll carry on and we'll work together, you see. What actually happened was I joined that group and 7 months went by. We started to do bits of clubs and things like that. Eventually, the Beatles made it, and there was that influence. The Stones made it, and then there was Eddie Clapton, lots of other people floating about.
Well, baby used to stay out.
One hit for them in 1964, the very same year that tonight's special guest, Dave Hill, started to meet some of the guys who would go on together to form Slade, including Noddy Holder. But we haven't got there yet. You're still at the point. You live in a bit of a double life, Dave. You're working for the Tarmac Company by day and playing in a band at night, right?
I used to start messing around with clothes.
Yeah.
And I used to have them in a polythene bag, you see, because what happened was, when I was working at Tarmac in the office, I had to be, it was almost like Superman. I was this office kid, but then I changed in the toilet into this other stuff.
Into a rock star.
Yeah, and it was like Superman comes out the phone box. And I changed into this outfit, and this scruffy old van turned up and picked me up to go and take me to this gig. Anyway, bit by bit, it got known by the personnel officer that I wasn't doing very well in the office job. So he says, you want to knuckle down to this? He says, I understand you're in a group and I've noticed your hair's getting along.
Yeah.
And what happened after that was we started to get more dates, and then we were offered a job in Germany. And because I quit my job, Dad said, stick to night school. And then I remember a couple of blokes out of the in-betweens turned up and said, hey, we've been offered 4 weeks in Germany. Beatles went to Germany, and maybe when you come back, we'll do something.
Who paid their dues and earned their stripes touring Germany right before they hit it big, a path that tonight's special guest, Dave Hill of Slade, followed with his then band, which is where you met Noddy, wasn't it? On the high seas, on the way to perform in Germany?
It's really funny, this, because when we went to Germany, that's where I first met Nod. He was on a boat going to Germany with a group called Steve Brett and the Mavericks, and Nod wasn't the main singer, it was Steve Brett.
Right.
But Nod was the guitar. So I met him briefly there.
So you met sort of on a ferry?
Yeah, going from Dover to Calais or somewhere, and we played Dortmund, which was a club where a lot of servicemen went to.
Right.
And you had to play half an hour, 10 minutes off, another half an hour until 2 a.m. So that's how we developed. And Nod was obviously playing somewhere else. And when we came back, we went through a funny stage where we loved the Beatles and we liked a four-man group. So Don and I were thinking, because the band we're getting into, I think it was you're either a rocker or you're a mob.
Yeah.
That was what was going on. And the Who were in the charts, and all this Parker jackets were a big deal. One day, we still hadn't found a singer. We went uptown, and there's a famous store called Beatty's. And really funnily, it's like things happen in life. I saw a Nod standing outside Beatty's. I said, there's Nod over there.
Right.
I wonder if he's still in the Mavericks or, And we went over to him and I said, so what are you doing? He said, well, I'm not doing much, actually. I've left the Mavericks and I'm not doing much, And he got a day job as well. And I said, well, we're looking for a singer.
Yeah.
So we went upstairs and had a coffee, right? And I just said to him, would you be interested? He said, yeah, maybe. He said, where are you playing? I said, well, we're doing the Willenhall Baths, which is a place where a lot of people play. And he came down to see us. And he showed a mild interest in us, saying, oh, yeah, it was a bit sort of like, yeah. So he was looking at me and Don and, what we were doing. And then what happened after that was, I don't think we had phones then. And I think either I found out where he lived. And I said, would you be interested? And he said, yeah, I would. I said,
that was the start.
But that was the start of it. eventually we became the Four. And then, of course, that led us on to playing together for many, many years.
Yeah. Well, let's listen to one of the earlier hits, shall we? This was in 1971. Your second ever single, 'Cause I Love You, was released, and it got to number 2. On a Ferry, followed by A Cuppa in the High Street, could have led to the massive success that they enjoyed together for so long. And we will be back with more great conversation from Slade's Dave Hill next on Greatest Hits Radio. Welcome back to the Great Conversation with Jackie Brambles and tonight's special guest, Slade's Dave Hill. Dave Hill, Slade are out on their Christmas tour right now. Next week on December 10th, they'll be in Holmfirth. On the 12th in Liverpool, the 14th in Bournemouth, then on to Oxford on the 16th, London on the 17th, Newcastle on the 19th, and finishing up, of course, on home turf in Birmingham on December the 20th. So, Dave, before the break, we heard how Noddy joined the band and you officially became Slade. And then the next piece of the puzzle that fell into place was when you were spotted by the legendary Chaz Chandler, who used to be in the band The Animals himself and then became known as a talent manager looking after no one less than Jimi Hendrix for a few years before he discovered you guys.
Chaz Chandler saw us in the club, loved us, managed us, and developed us. And then what happened was we had a song called Get Down and Get With It, which was a great live song. We recorded that and it got in the charts, which got us on top of the pops. And bearing in mind, I was experimenting with clothes at the time and what would become the sort of glam look.
Yeah.
Noddy got a top hat. There was a lot going on. Chaz was very into this, got us on top of the pops. Of course, immediately after that first hit, we had our first number 1 with 'Cause I Love You,
Yeah.
which then the silver stuff and the glitter, and there was Mark Bowl and all those people. I mean, I just remember getting into wearing these clothes and going into Kensington Market, and I do remember Freddie Mercury working in there.
Oh, right.
And I met someone who was making these platform boots, and I'm small, so I asked him if he could put a few extra platforms on, you know, and I had a couple of guys making leather clothes, and I got them to make a silver jacket, which then we got on top of the pops. And of course, the visual appearance of the group, and eventually led to Noddy's top hat with mirrors, developed into what was going to be phenomenal eventually, you know, which would have all pre-Christmas records and all that.
Yeah.
But we started to have enter the charts on a regular basis. And we had this visual appeal. I mean, for 4 years, we were absolutely on top of everything.
Number 1s and 16 top 10 hits enjoyed by Slade in their 70s heyday. Of course, there is one of your songs that gets huge amounts of airplay every single year, Dave, ever since it was released 50 years ago this year. And of course, that's your Christmas anthem, Merry Christmas, Everybody. How did that track come about?
This song that we had and recorded years and years ago in New York, in 100 degrees, and certainly wasn't Christmas, and we're all busily recording in this record plant studios.
Wow.
And it was really funny because we didn't really know the song, and we went in because John Lennon had booked some time in the record plant,
right,
and he cancelled, and we went in just to actually record this Christmas song. And the funny part was, it was an office block, you know, one of these tall skyscrapers in New York.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were all in the foyer at 9:30 in the morning trying to get the vocals going. And we're all singing, So Here It Is, Merry Christmas. And then a lot of Americans come in, you know, businessmen, and they're going, my God, what's going on here? 100 degrees outside, what's this crazy people? And he said, what are you doing singing Christmas? He said, I said, well, it's a record we're doing. He said, are you English? Yeah, we are. Oh, that's the reason then. It sounds like a nutty situation.
So it's all John Lennon's fault then, is it?
Well, actually, in a way, John had this organ in the studio, and if you listen to the record, the intro, you can hear John Lennon's organ on it, which is really nice.
Oh.
We just borrowed it because we were there, you see. And although we got a week off, none of us knew really the immensity of that song. None of us knew.
No.
We were just doing it, you know. It was like learning it in the studio, recording it. And then we just let our manager take the tapes back to England.
Right.
And mix it, you see. So we hadn't heard it for months because you didn't feel like Christmas at the time we did it.
No, of course.
But when eventually we did hear it, I thought, well, that sounds pretty good, doesn't it? No, we didn't really know how big a hit it would be, although 73 was a massive year for us with, you know, Come On, Feel the Noise, When We're All Crazy, and all those songs.
Yeah.
And Squeeze Me, Please Me. We had so many big ones that year. But the Christmas song, you know, I think it's something special, I suppose. And I think the public, as soon as they got to hear it, it just flew on the top of the pops, Radio 1. Everybody was on it right away.
That's everybody from Slade. 52 Christmases and still rocking us around the old Christmas tree with that banger. Well, we're nearly out of time, Dave, but before we let you go, we always ask our special guest to pick the final track of their Great Conversation Hour. It doesn't have to be an all-time favourite. That's far too difficult an ask. But we're just looking for a song that you return to often, that, you know, you never get tired of hearing, that lifts your spirits or perhaps brings back some great memories. So which track are you going to go for?
I've always liked Paul Rodgers as a vocalist, and I've always liked Free.
Yeah.
And that particular record, the simplicity of it, it's just one of those you stick on the car, but you turn it up. I do like All Right Now by Free.
Now our final track of the Great Conversation Hour, as chosen by tonight's special guest, Dave Hill of Slade, who you can see out live on their UK Christmas tour as we speak. Next Wednesday on December 10th, they'll be at the Picture Dome in Holmfirth. On the 12th, the O2 Academy in Liverpool. On the 14th, the O2 Academy in Bournemouth. Then they're on to Oxford on the 16th at the O2 Academy. Shepherd's Bush Empire in London on the 17th. City Hall in Newcastle on the 19th. And finishing up, of course, on home turf in Birmingham at the O2 Institute on December 20th. I know it's a lot of work for you at this time of year, but do you still love Christmas, Dave?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Time to get the tree up, trying to think about all the great songs, time to get on the road and entertain all that wonderful audiences and come down and come on and feel the noise with us.
All the best for the tour, Dave. Have a great Christmas.
I wish you all a very Merry Christmas.
Dave Hill of Slade. Amazing stories in our chat tonight to get us into the festive spirit. Next week's lineup.